Welcome everyone, I'm Isabel from heART Research UK and we are the charity dedicated to your heart. For the last 4 years we've been running an online art fundraiser where hundreds of artists and well-known names have created artwork on A5 postcards, helping to raise over £130,000 for our charity. This year artists include names such as Icy and Sot, Ralph Steadman, Jamie Hewlett, Christopher Kane, Anita Bowman, and one of our guests today, Deborah Azzopardi. We're delighted that Deborah has been a contributor to the project since 2018 and has been creating joyous artwork for over 35 years and enjoying worldwide fame for her pop art images. We're also welcomed by Helen. Helen is director at the architect and design firm TP Bennett. With a background in design, Helen is a specialist in strategic consultancy and helps organisations to use design to help improve workplace performance and efficiency. Hi, Helen. And finally, we're joined by Lucy Gordon, director at the employment team at Walker Morris. Lucy has over 15 years' experience in advising national and international businesses on employment law and has recently been involved with Walker Morris's Future World of Work research project with Leeds Business University. So we're here today to talk about how artwork can inspire creativity, fuel productivity in whatever workspace we are in. And obviously today that means some people working from home and often in small spaces. So Deborah, if I can turn to you first, how do you see art helping people to think creatively? And how can people with small spaces, be that the office or home, still incorporate art into their environment?
Hi, I think art is just to inspire and motivate. Mainly my keyword is fun, to enjoy. And if you have something you love, you enjoy it, even if you're not looking at it all the time, think, oh, there it is. And it's just to motivate a good feeling, a happy feeling. And everyone can enjoy it, but it's all around us. There's sculptures in parks, there's advertisements everywhere you go. And you're not even noticing really that you're noticing it. But then if it's gone, you'd say, oh yes, I remember that. Television adverts, everything. There's some very clever people out there with a great imagination. And it's to me, it's to promote a feel-good factor.
Thanks, Deborah. Helen, did you have something to say on this?
Yeah, I think absolutely concur with what Deborah said, and it's such a personal thing, but it's that emotional connection to art which is really key. And I think in everybody's homes or work environments, we have different influences, colours, materials, lighting, ambience, and all I would say is it helps to consider all of those things, perhaps in terms of selecting art and bringing art into spaces large and small.
Thank you so much. So we've had a huge shift in the way people are working over the last 2 years. Can you describe, Lucy, some of the challenges this presents to employers and employees?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the research that we were doing with Leeds Business University, we discovered that experiences throughout the pandemic have obviously ranged massively. So there's some people who have found the ability to work from home very freeing. It's enabled them to sort of meet aspects of their personality or their home life by juggling, unfortunately, homeschooling, caring responsibilities. It's given them that great degree of flexibility. But then equally, there are employees who've really struggled, and particularly those who work very closely in teams, who have that creativity that they really feed off other members of the team. And people who perhaps don't have the luxury of large houses, gardens, and that type of environment. So there's a complete sort of spectrum really of people who have either found the pandemic to be very beneficial and freeing, to those who have found it really hard and really struggled.
Yeah, and we found that, I think, as a charity, we all feed off each other's creativity. So not being together, especially the fundraising, we do bounce ideas off each other a lot, and to not have that, we've definitely missed that. Yeah. Thanks, Lucy. So presumably these trends of hybrid working seem to be here to stay in the main. How are organisations, Helen, dealing with these challenges in terms of the design of the working environment and how art can play a part in that?
Yeah, so the new buzzword is hybrid, isn't it? It was agile about 2 years ago and now it's hybrid. So I would say that it means it means different things to different employers and different organisations. So again, it does depend on the nature of the work, but for the majority, it has introduced them to a completely different way of working. Working from home is nothing new, but I think on a mass scale, it clearly is something that we've never experienced before, and will inevitably create a change going forward. And as I say, I think it's moved the game on for a lot of employers. What does it mean? What sort of trends are we seeing? I would say the biggest shift is that there will be a major move to non-assigned desks. Now, that's nothing new. We've talked about hot desking, etc., for years, but and working in neighbourhoods, and Walker Morris, have experienced this themselves firsthand. But what it really means for people is it's depersonalising space. There's a certain amount of concern around that, albeit now there's an acceptance that it probably wouldn't be right to be able to work from home flexibly and also have a dedicated desk waiting for you when you come in. So that's the realisation, which I think has been the shift. What it also, I suppose, has meant that if there's less desks and there's a different motivation for coming to work, for employers, it's making sure there's still a way to maintain that connection with an organisation and its brand and its values. And as you've already said, absolutely to connect with your team and your colleagues. So in surveys that we carry out on a regular basis, we're getting in excess of 70% response rate saying my main reason for coming into the office would be to connect with people. So that has to somehow change the shape, space and ambience of the workplace. And I think it should, and I think it should all evolve for the better. So it is about more collaborative spaces. There's opportunity to bring art and graphics and different types of art and sculpture, as Deborah's alluded to. There's so many ways in which you can classify art, and in all shapes and sizes of space. So I think it's a brilliant opportunity, but it's also, I think, clearly about bringing a little bit of that domestic and personalisation and interest to the workplace. So it's not so corporate. We've all worked at home with our personal possessions and trinkets around us for 2 years. So I think to go back to a kind of very corporate and stark environment wouldn't feel quite right. So it's just about finding that balance and resonating with type of space and how do you want to make people feel. Buildings and space influence the way people feel, behave, and clearly a big sort of resonator for us as a firm is creativity.
Absolutely. Thanks, Helen. And is that your experience, Lucy?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything Helen's said there. I mean, our research showed that during the pandemic, actually a lot of productivity increased, and whether that's to do with people feeling more comfortable in their own environment and therefore more productive and more creative. I think that's one of the things to do with it. I mean, we're very lucky here at Walker Morris. We've got amazing offices. And one of the things that we've really found coming back from the pandemic is exactly as Helen said, the days that we're in the office, we're choosing to make those focus days on collaborative working. So teams getting together, particularly more junior lawyers, really sort of feeding off supervision of more senior lawyers. And the spaces that we have here are really conducive to that. One of the other things that I would say is that the art that we have here in the office, it's also really helped with building relationships. So obviously we're having still a lot of Teams meetings rather than face-to-face meetings with clients and other contacts. And actually the art that we have in the office is often quite a good icebreaker. Yeah. So people can see the art that we have behind us on the screens, and it's actually a really good way of sort of starting that relationship and having a great conversation.
Like Deborah's artwork behind.
Exactly.
We all recognise that pop art is amazing. And so how does art in your own working spaces inspire you and fuel creativity? Who would like to go first with this one? We'll go to Helen.
Okay, yeah, well, you can probably see, I don't know if you can see, I've even got brand new artwork still in the frame wrapped up on the floor here, which was a recent birthday present. But I think for me, it is, it's all about enhancing the space that I've already got. You've got constraints physically in terms of, whether you've got a tiny studio apartment, whether you're lucky enough to have lots of space. But I think there's an opportunity, and this is just my personal kind of feeling, is different types of art with a different kind of size and colour and tone to influence what I do in those spaces. So I would have a very different kind of piece of art in my home office to the type of artwork I might have in a lounge. So it's all about whether you want to be inspired, whether you want to relax and just chill, if you want to perhaps kind of have a more creative environment. And I think one of the things that I'm hoping has happened with more people working from home and perhaps liberating some personal time is people have dabbled themselves in some of the kind of crafts and creativity because it doesn't have to cost anything.
That's a great answer. Thanks, Helen. And Deborah, so I know you're going to be very modest about this. I did get a home tour with artwork in your house the other day, but how does, you been surrounded by your own artwork, or like you say, you could even be looking out the window, how does it inspire you as an artist?
I'm inspired by everything, mainly conversation, humour, family, friends, an idea, a moment, a thought. And my own art is sometimes here because it's in transit, and I need to hang it to keep it safe so it's not picked. But I must admit, I go past and I think, really?
That's pretty good, actually.
Whatever, or the colour right or something. But I think artists learn from each piece that they do. And in fact, I think we all improve with age in every single possible way. Think, well, I painted that, but in fact, I could have done it better. So what I have around me, I mean, it suits me and it suits where I am for now, but my mind just carries on. I'm always on to the next. I'm always looking at it. It's mainly humour. It drives you.
Joyous, absolutely joyous, as seen described
we're all
online.
Different.
And Lucy, how about you and artwork?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, like many people during the pandemic, I was trying to find a space at home that I could convert into my work area. And I've used art at home really to carve out. My office is in my children's playroom, which isn't really ideal, but I've managed to carve out a corner where I do have some art, which I just find it calms me, but it's creative. It just makes me feel comfortable and in an environment where I think I can sort of do my best work. But I'm really excited by this idea. Actually, Helen was sort of talking about personalising the space that you do have in the office when you come in and you're hot desking. And actually this idea of potentially portable art, I think, is a great thing that actually could really take off.
Well, we do have some wonderful A5 signed pieces of artwork available soon. So TP Bennett, Helen, yourself and your team designed Walker Morris's new offices in Leeds. With their love of the art, which we've already touched on, how much was this incorporated into the design concept of the building, and why was this important to them as a key element of the working environment?
Yeah, it was a big factor, and I've been lucky enough to work with Walker Morris for many years and sort of receive and view the children's calendars. So I appreciate that Walker Morris are huge supporters of art in young people, and there's some incredible stuff that comes out of that. So yes, it needed to be and was very much an integral part of the brief. I think it was a really challenging brief though for young people. So obviously the Leeds Art University supported this, and to try and sort of get some young people to think about creating very unique and individual pieces of art to reflect the reputation of being a distinctive law firm. That's got to be the first time that these youngsters had ever come across a brief of that nature. I think I would have struggled, just because it's so specific. You know, what makes distinctive. But actually what we've ended up with is 13 incredibly striking and brilliantly unique pieces of art that strangely kind of hang together very well in the space. So the space itself, from our design perspective, needed to be a very subtle canvas that could accept and sort of really enjoy colour and different materials and you know, whatever it was that kind of came out of that. So there was a panel to judge what were some extraordinary sort of responses to the brief. And we were then able to sort of down select to 13 and think about how you would replicate those pieces of art at scale. And that's obviously, again, for some of these young artists, it's a fantastic opportunity, but something quite new. And what we've ended up with is individual rooms with character defined by that piece of art, and everything from, I suppose, from a staff perspective, you can also identify a room by the art. So, for example, the girl with the red hair, or the room with X, Y, and Z, rather than the room number, because that's obviously what we've got, which is far more exciting. And you are certainly, with the kind of main corridor on the client floor, drawn down that corridor by the piece of art which is at the end of the corridor. So again, it's all sort of subliminally influencing how comfortable we are in the space or the direction of travel. And I think it represents both the students that produce the work and Walker Morris as a business incredibly well.
Yeah, and we're in the offices today, Lucy, and the artwork is striking, isn't it?
It is, and exactly as Helen said, I think it reflects the personality of the firm in a way that I think a lot of people in the firm perhaps couldn't have imagined or hoped for. But exactly as you say, each of the artworks that we've got hanging in the meeting rooms, it gives each room its own personality, and I think that it sort of adds to the distinctive branding of Walker Morris.
Thank you. So final question now. Do you have any tips for finding the perfect spot for a smaller piece of artwork? Deborah, to you first.
It's tricky. You have to walk around wherever you live or wherever you're wanting art with it. It could be a shelf, it could be an odd place, a windowsill next to a vase, a bookshelf. The best thing about the heART research project is that they're all A5, they're all small. You can put a mount board, you can put a frame around it, you can make it bigger. But how wonderful to have several pieces of A5 all hanging next to each other. And the best thing is they're all original. They're not a print. I mean, my work's published globally, but imagine having an original by that artist that you can place on. That's a piece you want to look at. So you don't want it to disappear, even on a small coffee table. It's a question of walking around. It's odd places that you would normally hang up perhaps on a wall. And it's lovely having things together. You know, just say you have a red painting, maybe you have red cushions. Some people love matching their art to their interiors, but it's walking around with it saying, now where does this go? It's nice to have them grouped together. It's a great opportunity for somebody to do that.
Thanks, Deborah. That's great advice. And Helen, as an architect and designer, have you got any thoughts on this as well?
Yeah, I concur. I think particularly with small artwork, there's an opportunity to surprise people, either by where it's hung or in an awkward space that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily associate with art. If you haven't got the wall space, it could potentially just be on a table or on a console. But I support entirely what Deborah says. I think grouping things together of different, perhaps slightly different scale. You know, everybody's sort of got that space between the corner of a room and a door, and actually small artwork, A5 artwork, vertically works brilliantly well, and it actually, the eye is drawn to kind of making the space feel taller, depending on how you display art. And I don't believe there's anybody who hasn't got a space that's big enough to feature some A5 artwork. It's a brilliant opportunity to sort of delight and surprise in places you might not. Bathrooms, for example. Bathrooms are brilliant places to put art. I have a friend who has a kind of, I suppose, a photo montage in her bathroom, and what's really lovely about it is it is added to all the time and evolves, and sometimes you see yourself in it.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. So I'd like to thank all our contributors, especially our sponsor Walker Morris, for this fascinating chat about inspiring creativity through the artwork we love, whatever space we happen to be in. So the Anonymous Art Project goes live on the 22nd of October. The eBay auction closes at 9 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please do set up an eBay account in order that you can bid. You might just be able to bag yourself a mini masterpiece. Look out for Deborah's piece. You can follow the project at heartresearch.co.uk, on our social media platforms, Heart Research UK, and also using the hashtag #AnonArtProject. Thank you so much to Helen Nichols, TP Bennett, Lucy Gordon of Walker Morris, and Deborah Azzopardi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.